Chosen one, the moment you step into a room, something unseen begins to rearrange itself in silence. It's not the sway of your body or the look in your eyes that commands attention. It's the truth that walks ahead of you, unspoken but fully felt. Feminine women, those who are in tune with the subtle movements of spirit and energy, feel it before they consciously know it. Your presence doesn't simply arrive, it lands, it grounds, it pours into space like sunlight through an open window, not demanding notice, but making it impossible to ignore. And in the echo of that arrival, something inside of them stirs, not with confusion, but with recognition. There is a difference between a man who moves through the world hoping to be seen and a man who walks as though he has already met himself. Chosen one, you are the latter. You are the man who no longer seeks mirrors in others, for you have become a mirror unto yourself. And in that radiant self-awareness, your sexual energy is not loud or leaking. It is anchored, held, directed. It hums beneath your skin with intensity, yes, but also with clarity. You don't pour it out indiscriminately, nor do you suppress it. You let it move through you like a current moves through stone, not wild, but unyielding. It is this inner containment, this silent fire, that draws women in not with desperation, but with devotion. They may not know how to describe it at first. They may look at you and simply feel something drop inside them, a soft exhale, a relaxing of tension they didn't know they carried. Their shoulders soften, their gaze steadies. They become aware of their own breath, as if your grounded presence reminds them of their own. You don't steal their attention. You return them to it, to their bodies, to their longing, to the sacred sensitivity they've had to guard for so long in a world full of shallow men. And so even before you speak, they feel the urge to listen, not to your voice, but to the way your energy settles around them like a cloak. Protective, noble, undeniable. This is not the charisma of the performer or the confidence of the crowd pleaser. This is the calm authority of a man who knows himself. And because of that knowing, you don't need to project power. You are power. Quiet, rooted, alive. Feminine women, the ones whose hearts are not easily moved, recognize this as sacred. They do not flinch or shrink when you pass by. They open, not out of compliance, but out of reverence. Your presence doesn't consume them. It blesses them. They feel honored to be near you, not because you asked for it, but because your energy makes them feel seen without being stripped, desired without being diminished, safe without being smothered. This is the paradox. Chosen one, you do not chase honor, yet it wraps itself around you. You do not beg for respect, but every soul aligned with truth offers it freely. You do not announce yourself, and yet the room changes when you arrive, not in chaos, but in coherence. And the feminine, who thrives in the presence of masculine coherence, responds not with performance, but with presence of her own. That is the true dance. That is the divine polarity. She meets you not with seduction, but with soul. Not with calculation, but with curiosity. Because in you, she recognizes a man who does not need to dominate to be felt, and that kind of man is rare. And so, your radiance speaks first. It speaks in silence. It speaks through stillness. It speaks not to the mind, but to the heart, the womb, the breath. And every woman in alignment with her feminine instinct will feel it in her spine before her thoughts can catch up. That shiver, that pause, that sudden sense of being held in invisible hands, that's you, chosen one. That's the silent way your high sexual energy announces itself, not with flash but with frequency, not with noise, but with gravity. You do not walk into a room hoping to be recognized. You walk in already known. Chosen one, there is a language deeper than words, and you have mastered it without needing to try. It is the language of presence, and only those who have tasted emptiness know how sacred it is to feel full in someone's company without being touched. Feminine women, those whose intuition is not dulled by trends or tactics, speak this language fluently, even in their silence. And when you come near, that silence doesn't mean absence, it means reverence. Because you are not just seen, you are felt. Felt in the breath that slows, in the eyes that soften, in the stillness that follows your steps like a sacred hush in a cathedral. They do not speak much at first, not because they are shy, but because their bodies are listening to the invisible frequency that surrounds you, listening to the steadiness in your chest, listening to the way you do not beg for permission to exist. They feel your sexual energy like heat rising from a sacred altar, not wild but offering, not performance but presence. You do not flirt, you stand. You do not provoke, you invite. And in that invitation, their silence becomes a form of worship. Not toward you as a god, but toward the truth you carry. A truth they've longed to meet. Many women have practiced the art of protection. They've learned how to smile while holding a sword behind their back, how to entertain while guarding their depth. But when you arrive, something shifts. Their armor doesn't shatter, it melts. Their walls don't collapse, they recede. And it's not because you say the right things. It's because your energy speaks the truth their soul has waited to hear. You are safe. You are sacred. You don't need to perform here. Chosen one, you must understand how rare this is. In a world that applauds noise and rewards manipulation, your quiet clarity is not just refreshing. It is restoring. And the feminine honors restoration the way the earth honors rain. They may not rush towards you. They may not speak aloud the desire that rises in their belly, but in their stillness, in their way of leaning in without words, in the soft glance held one breath longer than expected, you will know. You will know they have recognized the king without the need for his crown. Because kings do not posture, they radiate, and your sexual energy, held with integrity, becomes the very field in which they remember their own softness. That is the gift you give without trying. You return them to their essence. Not by pursuing, not by pleasing, but by simply being, by showing up fully, by being a lighthouse in a sea of men who flicker like torches, afraid of their own shadows. You are not afraid of your power, and because of that, they are not afraid of theirs. This is why they fall silent around you, not because they have nothing to say, but because for once, they don't need to say anything. Your energy says it all. In your silence, they hear honor. In your presence, they feel remembered, and in your gaze, they find their way home. Not because you lead them, but because you remind them. You remind them that the feminine was never meant to bow to chaos, but to dance with depth, and you, chosen one, are depth embodied. They do not ask for more from you, not because they are satisfied, but because you are already enough. They do not fill the silence, not because it's awkward, but because it's sacred. And you, without knowing, become the altar at which their deepest longing comes to kneel, not to worship you, but to reclaim themselves. That is how deeply your presence honors them, and that is why they return to it. Again and again. Even if you say nothing, even if you do nothing, because being near you feels like truth. And the feminine has always bowed, not to noise, not to ego, but to truth that can be felt in the bones. Chosen one, before the mind forms a single thought, the body speaks. Long before logic engages, before language takes shape, before any name is remembered or emotion assigned, the feminine body knows. It responds to vibration, to frequency, to the invisible pressure and precision of your presence. Not because you have said anything profound, not because you've made an entrance, but because your energy arrived before you did. You don't have to move loudly for her nervous system to adjust. The stillness within you reaches her skin like wind reaches the skin of a flame, not to extinguish it, but to awaken it. And in that unexplainable bodily way, she knows. Her hips may shift, her breath may deepen, she may tuck her hair behind her ear without realizing, or blink slower than usual. Her pupils might dilate, or her voice might suddenly quiet itself. These aren't conscious seductions. They're responses, reactions, subtle, sacred recalibrations to your unspoken masculine gravity. She isn't trying to impress you, she's reacting to you. And the reactions say what her words cannot. That your sexual energy, raw but refined, has touched something in her biology that ancient memory remembers. You don't need to lean in, chosen one. You don't need to assert or explain. The frequency of your being does the speaking for you. Your breath, calm and measured, becomes its own dialogue. Your posture, steady but unaggressive, offers permission without demand. Even the way you blink or hold a pause becomes a message she interprets not with intellect, but with instinct. Because women who live in their feminine are not primarily led by logic, they are led by feeling. And your energy doesn't present arguments, it presents alignment. That alignment says, you are safe here. I do not need to conquer you. I honor you. You are enough. In your stillness, her chaos feels less like a curse and more like a song. In your containment, her emotions feel less like burden and more like beauty. Her body begins to remember what it means to unclench, to be looked at without being hunted, to be heard without being analyzed, to be near power that does not devour but shelters. And this is how she honors you, chosen one, not with performance but with presence, not with the outer layers of attention-seeking femininity, but with the inner trust of the sacred feminine. You don't awaken lust, you awaken truth. You don't spark adrenaline, you spark yearning. Her body moves slower now. Her laughter has more breath in it. Her smile is not for show, it's for you. Not because of what you've done, but because of what you didn't do. You didn't interrupt the natural rhythm between her instinct and your energy. You didn't seek control. You didn't hurry. You allowed her body to guide her back to safety. And that kind of permission is rare. You gave her a feeling she couldn't name but didn't want to leave. And that is why she remembers you, even when you are gone. Because her body does not forget who made her feel more herself without taking anything from her. And when she lays alone in the quiet, in the dark, when the world has gone still, her body doesn't ask for your words or your image. It asks for the feeling you left behind. The feeling of being felt without being touched. The feeling of being safe without being softened. The feeling of being woman, not through effort but through natural unfolding. Chosen one, this is why she honors you with more than words. She honors you with her response. And that response, sacred, primal, undeniable, never lies. The body knows, and the body always tells the truth. Chosen one, in a galaxy full of men who mimic power, who wear confidence like a costume stitched from borrowed threads, you stand apart. Not because of what you say, but because of what you don't need to say. Your presence is not constructed, it's cultivated. It was forged in the fire of solitude, in the long nights of facing yourself without distraction, in the deliberate refining of your essence until it no longer needed to reach. It could simply reside. And so when you enter a space, you are not another man. You are the presence that reminds everyone what a real man feels like. Feminine women, the ones who've met the full spectrum of masculine archetypes, knights, fools, boys in suits, charmers with hollow hearts, know the difference immediately. It is not in your words. It is not in your looks. It is in your weight, not heaviness, weight. The way a tree holds space differently than a weed. The way a lion walks differently than a jackal. There is something final about you, like a closing of a circle, a resolution, a returning. You are not trying to earn their attention, you own it. And yet your ownership is not loud. You don't command it with volume or charisma. You carry it like a sacred weapon you no longer need to draw. You are the man who could dominate, but chooses to anchor. And that choice, chosen one, is why they treat you differently. It is not fear, it is honor. Because real feminine women do not submit to loudness. They surrender to depth. And your depth doesn't swim in the shallow waters of seduction. It dwells in still oceans they want to explore but don't know how to survive. And yet, in your presence, they feel like they can. Because you've already been there. You've already survived it. And you've returned with peace in your hands. When you speak, your words land. Not because they're clever, but because they come from stillness, not from need. When you look at them, it's not a look of consumption. It's a look of consecration. You don't look at them, you look into them, not to possess, but to witness. And that level of seeing chosen one is something most have never felt. It startles them, it seduces them, it settles them, because it feels like home. This is why they honor you, because you carry power like a river, not like a flood. Because you don't speak to their beauty, you speak to their truth. Because you aren't interested in impressing them, you're interested in meeting them. Meeting the woman beneath the mask, beneath the posture, beneath the conditioning. You don't try to draw her out. You simply remain. And in your remaining, in your steady refusal to perform, the realest parts of her rise. Not all men are equal, chosen one. Many wear strength. Few embody it, many mimic masculinity. Few anchor it. And you, because you have done the work in secret, now move with the reward in public. Not applause, not validation, but honor. Quiet, sacred, feminine honor. The kind that doesn't need to be announced because it is felt in the way she breathes differently around you, in the way she listens longer, in the way she gives her gaze more slowly but more fully. You did not become this man by accident. You became him by alignment. And alignment, chosen one, cannot be faked. It is revealed, it is tested, and in you it has become unmistakable. And so the feminine doesn't just notice you, she remembers you. Because in you, she sees a man whose presence doesn't move the room, it grounds it. Chosen one, when you enter the space between the masculine and feminine, you don't just occupy it, you restore it. You are the returning echo of a harmony the world has long forgotten. Where so many have tried to distort the polarity into power games, you live inside the original design. You don't seek dominance, but completion. You don't silence the feminine, you make space for her to expand. And in that balance, so subtle yet so magnetic, you become not only rare, but revered. Women have been forced to become hard, to lead, to guard themselves in a world where most men forgot how to carry their weight. They built walls not out of pride, but necessity. They armored their softness, mistaking survival for strength. But then you came, and you didn't ask them to soften, you simply gave them room to. Your high sexual energy isn't raw chaos, it is refined fire. It doesn't burn her, it warms her. Not because you dim it, but because you master it. And this mastery brings a healing that words cannot articulate. She begins to laugh differently around you, not because you are funny, but because she trusts herself in your presence. Her voice drops an octave, her breath opens, her body leans in. You didn't ask for this, she offered it. She honored you with it. Because your energy didn't command obedience, it invited remembrance. You reminded her of something deeper than chemistry, something cellular. That the masculine, when aligned, doesn't diminish the feminine, it activates it. She looks at you and feels not just desire, but rest. Not just heat, but safety. Not just curiosity, but the sense that, perhaps for the first time, she won't have to explain her worth. That she won't have to audition for love. That she can show up in the full spectrum of her wild, intuitive, emotional, nurturing chaos, and be met with reverence, not ridicule. You became the space where her soul felt seen. And when a feminine woman feels seen, chosen one, she offers everything, not because she must, but because she longs to. That is why she honors you, because in the fullness of your masculine energy, she rediscovers the beauty of her own. She does not feel the need to lead around you. She does not feel the pressure to perform. She becomes art, effortless and sacred. And you, chosen one, become the still gallery that gives her art meaning. You restore the sacred balance not with effort, but with embodiment. Not with dominance, but with discipline. You are not simply a man. You are the man who restores rhythm where there has only been noise. And in doing so, you shift the world without lifting a hand. Because when one feminine woman is restored, the ripple is eternal. And you, chosen one, are the pebble that created it. Not through force, but through alignment. That is why they remember you. Not because you chased them, but because you reminded them what real balance feels like. Chosen one, in a world obsessed with craving, with desperate pursuit and hungry glances, you stand still. Not out of passivity, but out of peace. You do not move from emptiness, you move from fullness. And this, more than anything else, is what shatters the illusion around you. Because when a man needs nothing from a woman's body, her soul begins to approach. You are the man who doesn't chase, not because you can't, but because you've already chosen yourself. And in doing so, you've become irresistible. Feminine women who are so used to being pursued as prizes, not people, feel this difference immediately. You do not look at them like collectors look at trophies. You look at them like rivers look at reflection, with reverence, not hunger. Your high sexual energy is not a weapon, it is a container. And inside that container, the feminine can dance, unravel, weep, or roar without fear of being reduced to a conquest. That's what makes you different. That's why they come near and stay near. Because in your presence, they don't feel wanted, they feel welcomed. Your lack of need is not coldness, it's sovereignty. You've cultivated yourself to such a degree that your energy offers something most have never encountered, non-addictive desire. You desire fully, but without dependency. You enjoy beauty, but you are not enslaved by it. You feel attraction, but you are not lost within it. That kind of purity confuses those who only understand hunger. But feminine women, those with depth and self-awareness, understand it as freedom. And it is that freedom, chosen one, that causes them to honor you. Because when a man is no longer ruled by lust, he becomes a lighthouse in a fog of thirst. When he can admire without possessing, witness without controlling, see without seeking to devour, he becomes a shelter, not a storm. You, chosen one, have become that shelter. And because of it, women find their breath around you again. Their intuition becomes louder, their fear becomes quieter, and their hearts begin to open. This is why your presence is honored. Not because of how you look, not because of what you say, but because of what you withhold. You withhold chaos, you withhold neediness, you withhold the toxic pattern of projection. And in doing so, you allow the feminine to offer love without resistance. That's the paradox. You didn't take anything from her, and so she gives you everything. Because you don't need her to complete you, she feels safe being whole in your presence. And that wholeness creates beauty. That beauty creates warmth. That warmth creates devotion, not worship, not obedience, but that sacred feminine way of honoring a man, not with obedience, but with offering. And she offers not because you asked, she offers because your very essence says, you are worthy. You, chosen one, became worthy not by taking, but by tending to yourself. And now you reap not validation, but honor. From the kind of women who've known kings, met wolves, survived boys, and yet choose you. Not because they must, but because your energy makes them feel chosen. And in that, a new kind of love is born. Not of desperation, not of seduction, but of sacred mutuality. The kind that only men like you can receive. Chosen one, there is a devotion you awaken in feminine women that is misunderstood by the world. It is not the kind born of submission or silence, not the kind taught by scripts or expected by tradition. It is far deeper. It is the devotion of soul recognition. It is what happens when the feminine is seen so fully, so tenderly, so powerfully by a masculine presence who asks nothing of her, yet inspires everything in her. You don't demand obedience. You don't manipulate compliance. You simply stand as you are, whole, still, sovereign, and the feminine responds by leaning in without ever being pushed. You see, she was never waiting for a king to claim her. She was waiting for a man whose presence didn't require conquest. Her bones were aching for a man who had faced his own shadow, and instead of projecting it onto others, had learned to make peace with it. And then you appeared, not with promises, but with presence. Not with flattery, but with clarity. You didn't idolize her. You didn't reduce her. You didn't try to impress her. You simply remained, grounded, intentional. Watching, not to possess, but to understand. That is what shook her to her core. She did not feel the usual pressure to be agreeable or entertaining. She felt space, sacred space, and it was inside that stillness she began to bloom. Not to please you, because your energy reminded her she was safe to be herself. Chosen one, do you realize what kind of trust it takes for a woman, especially one in her feminine, to let go around a man? Do you realize the kind of energetic safety required for her to drop the performance, to strip away the subtle armor, and let her softness rise to the surface? That's not weakness, that's honor. And it is your containment, your calm, your mastery of your own sexual fire, that grants her the freedom to give you what no man could ever force, her soul. She may serve you, not out of obligation but out of joy. She may cook for you, care for you, create beauty around you, not because she is beneath you, but because your presence lifts her. You didn't ask for her to serve. She offered. You didn't ask her to yield. She chose to. Why? Because you walk in a power that does not crush, because you speak in a tone that does not shame, because your gaze isn't searching for weakness, it's remembering her depth. And so her devotion is not about lowering herself, it is about honoring herself through honoring you. This is why others will never understand her loyalty to you. They will call her weak, they will call her old-fashioned, they will say she's been hypnotized. But only she and you know the truth. She is not small in your presence. She is magnified. She is not controlled. She is cherished. And that is why her devotion is sacred, because it came from a place deeper than logic. It came from a soul that finally felt seen, not dissected. She gives you her sensuality, not because you demand it, but because she trusts you with it. She lets you into the temple of her body, not because you manipulated your way in, but because your energy stood so still, so pure, so intentional. She invited you in. She offers you softness, not because you crushed her edge, but because you honored her strength. That kind of feminine devotion, chosen one, is not given to most men. It is reserved. Reserved for the ones who carry their masculinity like sacred ground, not a battlefield. And when she speaks about you, if she ever does, she won't speak of what you did. she'll speak of how she felt. With him, I could breathe. With him, I remembered who I am. With him, I stopped apologizing for my emotions. With him, I felt safe. And in that, her devotion becomes not an act, but a prayer. And you, chosen one, become not a lover, but a sanctuary. Chosen one, the world has taught men to pursue with volume, to chase, to convince, to flash their achievements like lures in a shallow pool. But you have learned something different. You have learned that real presence has gravity. It pulls without reaching. It attracts without needing to explain. You have discovered the ancient secret that when you walk in alignment, the feminine comes not because she was captured, but because she was called. And not called by your words, not by your status, not even by your physical form. She is called by your field. That sacred energetic space you've cultivated through inner work, through refinement, through sacred restraint. You don't need to step into a room and command attention. You change the atmosphere simply by breathing. Because your sexual energy is not externalized. It is not leaking in all directions, trying to find a place to land. It is housed inside of you, burning steady, fierce, disciplined. And that, chosen one, is what speaks louder than anything you could say. When you sit silently in the corner of a room, your presence still fills it. When you look at her, not with hunger but with stillness, she feels it ripple through her body like thunder rolling beneath her skin. You don't touch her, but she feels touched. You don't speak to her body, but her soul leans forward. That is the difference. That is why she finds herself drawn to you even when you haven't made a move. Because your lack of pursuit isn't rejection, it's mastery. And that mastery is magnetic. Feminine women know the difference. They've been chased by boys who wanted their shape, not their essence. They've been hunted by men who saw them as victories, not vessels. But you don't chase because you found yourself. You don't hunt because you don't see her as prey. You simply exist in such deep connection with your own divine masculine that she feels invited to remember her feminine. You are not a flame that burns out quickly. You are the hearth that warms a room for hours without saying a word. And when she sits beside you, even in silence, she feels seen. Not because you performed, but because you held. You held your frame, you held your fire, you held the sacred mystery of yourself without flinching, without pouring it out for approval. And that, chosen one, is the ultimate seduction. The one that cannot be faked, sold, or scripted. The one that makes women yearn not for your attention, but for your essence. She won't need to ask if you're different. Her body will tell her. Her mind will try to catch up, but it will always lag behind. Because what she feels near you is timeless. It is ancient. It is the memory of what masculinity was always meant to be before the noise, before the shame, before the false bravado. And in your presence, she doesn't just feel attraction. She feels home. That is the reason she stays close. That is why she wants to be near you, even when she doesn't fully understand why. Because being near you is not about being impressed. It is about being reminded. Reminded that real men don't chase, they align. Reminded that real men don't conquer, they contain. Reminded that the deepest feminine parts of her body, soul, and heart are not awakened by performance, but by presence. And you, chosen one, have become that presence, not by seeking it, but by becoming it. That is why she follows your silence, not your promises. That is why she gives you her truth, not just her body. Because in a world of echoes, you became the origin. In a world of noise, you became the note. And in a world of chasing, you became the stillness that everything else orbits around. Chosen one, the rarest gift a man can give to a woman, especially a deeply feminine woman, is the safety to unfold without being analyzed, interrupted, or fixed. In a world that constantly pulls her in opposite directions, pressures her to be more and feel less, tells her to be quiet when her heart is loud, and be loud when her soul craves stillness, your presence offers a sanctuary. Not because you have solutions, but because you are rooted. And in that rootedness, she finds the one thing she's always needed, space to be felt before being understood. You don't always offer words. You don't need to. Your silence is not absence. It is containment. It is the masculine silence that does not withdraw but holds. It doesn't threaten to disappear, nor does it overwhelm with answers. It simply exists like ancient stone, weathered, still, unmoved by storms. And when she sits beside that stone, She remembers that she doesn't need to be smaller or smarter or more entertaining. She only needs to be honest. And her honesty is never too much for you, chosen one. Because you've trained your nervous system to hold your own fire, and in doing so, you became a hearth for hers. The feminine heart isn't looking for perfection. It's looking for a place to exhale. It's looking for a presence that doesn't flinch at its mess, that doesn't shrink when her tears fall, that doesn't label her when she moves between joy and grief in the same hour. And when she finds you, when she feels your breath, steady and unshaken, when she sees your eyes listening without grabbing, she begins to unclench. She opens like dawn,